Hi, this is Aloka Srinivasan from Raha LLC. My question is for Dr. Chen. I saw in your micro-related document, which was incredibly nice, you repeatedly, for several situations, talked about not enough lots being used. And I was wondering how that becomes a common, as a former FDA, it was the Holy Trinity. I mean, as long as people did 3 lots, we used to be okay. But has anything changed in there? Or are you seeing that more and more people are being adventurous and not doing the right work?
Yeah, it's the latter. Yeah. So yeah, typically we always want to see things in triplicates, and a lot of the times when we have issues related to that, it's due to the triplicates.
All right, thank you for that response. We have another question within the room. If you'd like to go ahead and go, sir.
Good morning. This is Sharif Ahmed from Avon. A disclaimer, I'm not a microbiologist, but I do have a question for Dr. Chen. So when you have a product which cannot be sterilized, either terminal sterilization or aseptic filtration, and the most viable option is a gamma radiation, and even at that, a full dose is not viable, has the agency accepting a lower SAL level? And what kind of justification we need to provide with that?
That's a complicated question. So typically if we're like looking at injectables or things that are being like put into eyes and things like that, we want the product to be sterile. And so in order to justify those situations, that there's a bunch of different studies that would need to be conducted. Just because a product cannot be terminally sterilized, there are also like bioburden-based sterilization techniques. So if you are calculating how much bioburden is within a drug product, that could be used to justify not being terminally sterilized. But again, those could be questions that are brought up during like meetings in order to determine what type of studies would be needed.
Thank you. So these will be more appropriate for a pre-development meeting or pre-ANDA?
Yeah, because if there's a review issue based on how that product is getting validated in the submission, there probably would not be enough time to address those issues during the submission process.
Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. If there's no other questions within the room, we can turn it over for online questions.
Okay, this question is addressed to Dr. Bai, please. Following the RS agreement it reached via CC, can the agency clarify if a pre-ANDA meeting is available? Although the product itself is non-complex, the current RLD shortage and the use of RS in a different dosage form have introduced significant complexities into the BE study design.
Okay, thank you for the question. Generally, the pre-ANDA meetings are reserved for complex drug product, but for some special cases, it will fall into May grant category. And as I see the question also talking about like BE approach, so I'd like to have like our OGD folks to address it.
So, given you already have established the conversation with the agency through CC, and still have a complex like the RD not available, and you want to use the different dosage form to as a bridging study to support your develop the generic drug. Yes, you can submit the PI in the meeting, but in the submission, you need to clearly describe what is the complex issue, what is the alternative, the B approach you want to use, and outline the detailed statistical approach, like you want to use the bridging, like what kind of information you can support your proposed method. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Dr. Chen, please. If we implement a slight reduction in the concentration of preservative to improve ocular tolerability, will the agency accept USP 51 on the finished product at the end of its shelf life, or is a new stability study required?
So the reason that we're asking for the preservative content at or below the minimum specification is because we want to ensure that no additional microbial growth has occurred. So if there is, like during the whole time of the sample, so we would like to see new stability studies that are showing your preservative content at or below your new formulation.
Sorry. We still have some time. We're not almost done. Thank you.
And it does look like we have another question in the room if we'd like to go there.
Thank you.
I guess I have a follow-up question regarding preservatives. So when you have a product which has a combination of preservative and antioxidant, we believe there may be some difficulty in doing the preservative effectiveness test. Is there any guidance, or can you suggest how should we handle, or what, if you are aware of any acceptable way to study this whole system, or the primary preservative study should be good enough?
So if there is some sort of competition between the oxidant and the preservative, if you include that study within your application, that would be helpful, but the primary preservative testing should be sufficient.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for at least a few more questions. Brenda, do you have more?
Okay, this is one for Dr. Kokate. Regarding the coat weight sampling strategy on slide 10, can you elaborate on the recommended test frequency and sampling locations?
So coat weight is an important IPC test for transdermal systems. One suggestion we have in terms of the sampling, testing frequency and locations is the testing frequency should cover the entire CDL process. That's one thing. And although it could be application specific, our suggestion is that the minimal requirement is at least one role should be tested. And if you have multiple roles, then for each role, you should the applicant should consider taking samples from throughout the length of the role as well as the width of the role. So both dimensions need to be considered for sampling locations.
Thank you very much. Next question will be for Dr. Ren. Are you considering the ISPR? Oh, I'm sorry. Include subject period reanalysis.
So your question is ask whether we include the subject period.
Include subject period reanalysis.
Reanalysis. So in our evaluation, we definitely carefully evaluate the subject sample reanalysis, whether it's follow their SOP or whether this kind of analysis criteria is appropriate identified in the SOP, whether this kind of analysis could impact the BE outcome. Yeah, we do.
Okay, I think that may be all the questions that we have time for so that we can stay on board with our lunch break for now.